Are we ready? Are you guys ready? Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Tuesday, December the 7th, or Tuesday, December the 2nd at 7 o'clock. Before we get started, the Village of Anmore would like to open our meetings by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are located within the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver. It would be the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we'd like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'll call the meeting to order. Could I get someone to move the recommendation that the agenda be approved as circulated? Moved. Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Public input. Matters raised here are for council's consideration and should be constructively focused on agenda items only. Please limit comments to 2 minutes and save questions for the question period at the end of the meeting. Is there any public input? Nope. Delegations. Sorry.
I just wanted to say that I'm speaking to the bylaws, and on the bylaws where you have statutory holidays, it's including Boxing Day, and Boxing Day is not a statutory holiday in BC. I just we're drafting it, if we could get it right. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to delegations. We have Kiana Mohammed Sagalti. So I'll refer to Ms. Kiana. Refers Ms. Kiana. Would you like to come forward?
Good afternoon.
You pull the microphone down. Yeah, there we go.
Good afternoon. I want you to picture something. You're standing at the edge of a peaceful lake, calm waters, kids skipping rocks, ducks swimming. But when you look down, instead of seeing your clear reflection, you see plastic bottles, wrappers, and microplastics. That image is what inspired me to create EcoEnergy, a renewable device designed to clean lakes automatically. The problem: every year, thousands of pounds of garbage end up in Canadian lakes. This pollution harms fish, birds, and even people, and cleaning it by hand is slow, expensive, and nearly impossible. So I asked myself, what if technology could do it for us? Introducing EcoEnergy. EcoEnergy is a floating robot that helps clean lakes on its own. I've already built and tested a working prototype which successfully collected floating bottles, wrappers, and other debris, proving the idea works. Now I'm designing a full-scale solar-powered version with smart sensors. It will detect and collect both large plastics and microplastics, which are often too small to remove by hand. EcoEnergy travels across the lake using solar power. Its sensors scan for trash, guiding the collection system to gather debris into a secure compartment. It's safe for wildlife, low maintenance, and fully autonomous. When the bin is full, the device sends a signal for emptying. It can operate in lakes of many sizes and work reliably in normal weather conditions. Cost and scalability. The prototype was built on a low budget, and a large-scale version can be produced affordably, especially in a bulk. Most long-term costs involve production, transport, and simple maintenance, which could be handled by volunteers, environmental groups, or city staff. Because it runs on sunlight, ongoing costs stay low. Imagine every lake in our city having an EcoEnergy device, quietly cleaning while people swim, fish, and enjoy nature. Cleaner water, healthier wildlife, a community leading in environmental innovation. EcoEnergy isn't just a project, it's a step towards cleaner, greener future. EcoEnergy is my first invention, but it won't be my last. My dream is to launch a tech company that builds renewable, eco-friendly solutions that protect the planet. Even as a young inventor, I want to show that real solutions can start now. what I'm asking for. Today I'm asking for your support to allow me to test eco-energy in local lakes, sponsor me or connect me with someone who can. With your help, I can turn eco-energy into a full-scale solution that protects our lakes across Canada and eventually beyond. One day, I hope we can stand beside a lake so clear we could see the bottom and know eco-energy helped make that possible. Together, we can protect our lakes and prove that innovation and hope can drive real change. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everything. Just fascinating, and thank you again for coming. You had reached out to me a few months ago, and I know it was we were able to coordinate. With Bunsen Lake, I'm sure we could put you in contact with our community liaison person, which would be great. We can send you an email with her so that you could go and present possibly to them as well, because Bunsen is operated through BC Hydro. But I just wanted to thank you, your spirit of ingenuity, and that is amazing. And what great parents to have to promote this and that. And as a council, we have a little gift for you for thank you for coming and that. And we just want to thank you again for presenting. And we want to keep updated in regards to how your progress goes moving forward. Is there any comments from council or?
Yeah, feel free to ask any questions.
Yeah.
Well, I have about 1 million questions. I want to know exactly how it works, so maybe I'll have to connect with you guys offline or something, because this sounds very interesting to me. And thank you for your presentation. I love seeing this kind of stuff.
Anything else? Okay, so here, come on over, Karen, and I'll just. Okay, we'll now move on to the minutes. The minutes of the regular council meeting held on November 4th, 2025. Could I get someone to move the recommendation for those minutes to be adopted as circulated? Moved, seconded. Any discussion on those? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Nope. Move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? No? I would like to remove 7E. So with that, can I get someone to move the consent agenda? Seconded. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Oh, okay. So just make an announcement.
Yep, I will recuse myself. I have a client that is named in the Port Moody OCP. Can I use your keys?
Okay, so the motion for 7E is that the letter dated November 26, 2025 from the City of Port Moody regarding Port Moody 2050 draft official community plan be received for information. Could I get someone to move that? Moved and seconded. I have a couple of points of concerns regarding the 7E Port Moody 2025 OCP as I read through it. One of the questions is that you know, they address, the OCP help address any of the concerns we might have in Anmore. One of the concerns is that they will be taking Ioko Road to be more climate resilient, pedestrian friendly streets and cycling corridor. This seems to like it could have a negative effect on Anmore residents coming and going. Over the past years, for many residents, there was concerns about road capacity, traffic concerns, and wildfire concerns. Given that Port Moody is looking to reduce the capacity of Ioko Road and not place David Road back on the road, we should be concerned about that. So the other one was about the connectivity of the park system, where they don't really talk about integrating it very much with Anmore. Also about the development of Port Moody and the Ioko lands, and not really. They're envisioning a large portion of the site will eventually be used for innovative combination of low-density residential, multi-thing. We just wanted to make sure that we should be involved in that. in that. So what my comment is that I'd like to amend a motion to ask for a 60-day extension so council and staff can actually have a wholesome discussion about the Port Moody OCP as they've presented it. So I'd like to second the amendment. Any discussion? They did the same to us. They asked for a 60-day for us, yeah.
Just have a comment. Ioko Road's an MRN road.
Right.
Isn't there a standard that they have to build that road to? They can't do like.
They cannot limit capacity nor any usage.
Okay, so can we just make sure we watch that and
Well,
raise the alarm if that
I would
happens?
say that they've started doing some of that right now by the Old Orchard with some of the traffic calming measures that have been put in there
I
currently.
agree.
Yeah.
Who can we bring that up with?
Well, it would be comments that we'd make back on this OCP amendment.
Okay, then we should.
Yeah. So I think there's a bunch of stuff if we can get staff to prepare something, a full report back on the effects. I think about the development in the Ioko town site, the network of roads, the parks are the three things that really jumped out to me. And that, as well as the protection of the Mossam Creek hatchery area as well. So,
My apologies to interrupt. Can I get the resolution, the amendment again with the
the
three
amended
components?
resolution would be that that's been moved and seconded that ask staff for a 60-day extension to provide comments so that Anmore Council and staff can provide further comments. Okay?
Do you want to include those three aspects or leave it as more
Just
general?
leave it all as,
Okay.
yeah. So with that, I'll call the amended resolution. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I guess we.
So, will we send something to TransLink as well? Would we send something to TransLink as well?
No, because they'll have to send it off to TransLink themselves. Yeah. This is just for Anmore. Okay. We're now on to 9A, Legislative Reports, Pinnacle Ridge Referral Summary. Report dated November 28th from our planner is attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor Buin. So this report presents a summary of the referral responses received for the Pinnacle Ridge rezoning application and outlines how staff proposed to address the received comments. So following the second reading of the Pinnacle Ridge rezoning bylaw on July 22nd, 2025, Council directed staff to undertake several referrals, including consultation with the City of Port Moody and the Sessamat Volunteer Fire Department and Mossam Creek Hatchery. So the referrals have been sent out and staff are reporting back with the responses received. For Mossam Creek Hatchery, raised concerns about steep slope hazards on the site, potential sedimentation impacts to the Mossam Creek Hatchery, as well as risks to groundwater quality from septic systems, pools, hot tubs, and stormwater discharge. They also highlighted the watershed's limited capacity to manage additional flows and recommended that real-time monitoring be implemented during the development stage. Some staff responses is that these matters will be addressed at the subdivision stage through detailed geotechnical, hydrogeological assessments, as well as detailed septic and stormwater design work that typically gets done on the subdivision stage. While real-time monitoring is not currently required under village bylaws, staff do recommend that incorporating real-time monitoring requirements into the stormwater management plan to ensure that discharge quality meets the standards of the sediment and control bylaw in terms of controls with real time. This could be secured through a covenant prior to adoption. For City of Port Moody, they noted that they cannot confirm water system capacity at this time. They're currently analyzing existing capacity due to the impacts of new housing legislations. So Port Moody advised that the village may also request and fund additional modeling to analyze system capacity to service any potential demand projections for Anmore. They also advised that the proposed emergency access to Hickory Drive may impact sensitive forested parkland and requested that environmental impact assessment, a wind throw assessment, and other environmental considerations include city parklands adjacent to the site. So staff will continue to work with Port Moody on water servicing and confirm that the design and impact of the proposed reservoir on site where additional water demand from Port Moody may not be required. Staff will also work with the applicant to provide environmental information for the emergency access and adjacent parkland and require covenants to be placed on title to ensure all mitigation measures, which are typically included in environmental impact assessment, to be adhered to. For assessment volunteered fire department, they've identified the need for adequate fire flows and supported requiring sprinklers in the dwellings. They commented on grades, emergency access, and the need for appropriate cul-de-sacs and turnaround points. They also recommended implementing all wildfire mitigation measures, including rooftop sprinklers, non-combustible building materials, and wide roads to act as fire breaks. So fire flow requirements will be addressed under the subdivision control bylaw. Staff will also work with the applicant and Port Moody regarding the proposed secondary emergency access requirements and recommend that the wildfire hazard measures outlined in the assessment be required through a covenant put on title prior to adoption. Staff will still continue to work with this assessment volunteer fire department on the proposed road designs, turnarounds, and grading considerations moving forward. In terms of next steps, many of the concerns raised are technical in nature, and these are typically addressed through subdivision review. However, prior to adoption, staff will recommend a host of key conditions to be secured through a covenant, including but not limited to environmental mitigation, wildfire protection measures, emergency access requirements, and stormwater and septic controls. Staff will continue to work with Port Moody, Assessment Volunteer Fire Department, and the BIMES and the applicant to resolve outstanding issues, and will return to council with amended bylaws and updated application packages addressing all referral comments, as well as the comments and recommendations provided by the committees during their September and October meetings. So the recommendation on the table is that the report titled Pinnacle Ridge Referral Summary, dated November 28, 2025, by the village planner be received for information. Thank you.
Could I have someone to move that receipt? Moved and seconded. I'll open up for questions and comments. Councillor Weber.
Just one comment. It references 12% road grades as a recommendation. Is that going to happen in that development?
So there might be areas where it'll exceed 12%. So these are considerations we're going to bring back to the applicant and still kind of work with the fire department to just ensure that we have acceptable grades on the other side.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued with the water discussion with Port Moody, and it kind of goes back and forth, and I never get a feel. So the current connection, I think, is a 12-inch line, is that right? Or 9-inch line? 12? Are we at 25% of its capacity, 75% of its capacity? Like, we must have a feel. That's one. It's a kind of a two-part question. And two, my understanding is there's a reservoir that goes in with this development on our side, and the old Hickory Reservoir is coming till its end of life, is my understanding, or close to it. Is there not a win-win between Port Moody and Anmore here for that? Like, I understand it'll be explored a little bit, but you know, if we're at 95% today, I struggle with how it moves forward. If we're at, you know, 30%, okay, then things are okay. And we should have, at least in my head, which sometimes isn't so good, a ballpark idea of where we sit. Do we have that, please?
It's a pretty technical answer, but I'll try and keep it as short and non-engineering as possible. So water systems are really defined by capacity in two ways. So there's this peak maximum daily demand, which is when you run your tap, you're drinking your water. That's one way we look at demand. And the real capacity assessment is done on fire flow requirements. And so when we talk about the capacity of the system, it's really that fire flow capacity that we're really designing to. And so with this type of development, Port Moody would not be able to supply the amount of water required to meet subdivision control bylaw for the amount of volume of water that need to come out of a tap to satisfy fire flows. Hence why the requirement for a reservoir is needed, because that is the thing that would provide the capacity or the amount of volume of water needed for the amount of time when a firefight was going on, so they could supply it. So in terms of can Port Moody supply us water, yes, but the answer is really about how much water can Port Moody supply us on a constant demand basis will actually size how big the reservoir needs to be. Because it's kind of like water goes in, a lot of water comes out, and it's that delta between those two things will size a reservoir. It's a little bit more technical than that. So in that nature, the answer is yes, they have water. We have to determine how much water we need to store on our side of the fence. When it comes to a win-win, yes, I would say, because I've been talking with the engineering department directly and talking about a cross connection between our two municipalities that provides redundancies for themselves and for us. Just as an example, recently, as of 2 weeks ago, Port Moody were doing maintenance on their reservoir, and they actually had to turn off the connection basically towards our reservoir, the part of the connection to our municipality, and then we had to rely on backup pumps to actually supply water to us if there was an emergency. So if we have our own redundancy, the same for Port Moody, there is then redundancy back and forth between those two things.
To follow up on that, today, they supply our hydrants, because we don't have a reservoir.
Yeah, that's correct. So currently they supply water to us, which would supply fire demand for the type of housing unit that we currently have.
Okay.
So there's this thing called the Fire Underwriter Survey, which dictates how much water should be provided in a fire, and different housing types require different amounts of water.
Any other questions? Any? Councillor Cryer, and then Councillor
Just a quick question on the City of Port Moody and their system update. What's the timing of that? Are they anticipated to be done when?
Talking with Port Moody, they don't have a defined date for us right now. They're working through it. And then I'll be conversing with their engineering department once they have that data. But in reality, it's again more about that. How much of the small trickle can they supply to us constantly compared to the actual amount of water we need to store in a reservoir? Because no matter what, I think what the study will come out and say is, hey, we don't really have huge amounts of water to supply you guys, because their peak demand is going to go up, because they're looking at the analysis of Housing Act and saying more houses can be built on each lot. So therefore, they're going to have more demand in their municipality.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is addressed with Councillor Richardson's question, but I recall, it might have been an informal discussion, but I recall, I believe, something about the aging reservoir that Port Moody has now up at the end of the Pinnacle sort of trail, and that the installation of something new would there'd be some reciprocal benefit to that. That's still the case. I mean, I'm happy to have one that Anmore controls, obviously, that makes total sense. But when you say win-win, do you mean that it can provide firefighting volume, extra volume for Port Moody as well?
Yeah, that's correct. That we could have a cross connection between our municipalities, so there'd be redundancy for Port Moody as well as ourselves. So, and say in case of an earthquake, if something happened to their reservoir and ours was still standing,
Yeah.
we could open literally the valve of the tap to supply water to Port Moody. In that
Okay,
way.
so it truly is win-win.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I've got a few questions. It's interesting, Josh, in your report, because you say from the City of Port Moody highlighted uncertainty regarding water system capacity as their current modeling includes only existing Anmore demands. They cannot confirm whether the system can support Pinnacle Ridge until their own system update is complete. So I'm wondering, how could this move forward without that report being done? And further, it says that we could fund that, so why are we not? If the development is subject to that, we should get moving on that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think their approach is to try to provide the infrastructure so that there is no additional capacity loads from the Port Moody reservoir. So that's something that's being explored first. I think they just said that at the village request, you could also fund initial study to see any sort of future projections within the village and whether they can meet those capacity needs.
So we should get going on that before we can really move this process forward.
Well, no, like the current approach is to provide a reservoir so that there is no additional demand from the Port Moody
It's
reservoir.
not mentioning the reservoir here. Your report regs the water system capacity as their current modeling includes only existing Anmore demands. They cannot confirm whether the system can support Pinnacle Ridge until their own system update is complete.
Correct.
So that's not just referring to a reservoir, that's referring to their system.
No, so I'm referring to a proposed reservoir for the Pinnacle Ridge site specifically, which would offer the redundancy for that site specifically.
Okay,
So
but
the overall water system
That's not what
is
it says specifically in your report, just on page 23. the second, at the very bottom of where it says City of Port Moody. It's my page 23. I think it's 9A, the second page,
23,
where it's,
24. Yeah, so I mean, look at page 25, the responses in the table on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
So basically what it's saying is, we'll coordinate with Port Moody to support the water share agreement. However, there's a review for adequacy for the proposed water reservoir and servicing Port Moody, or Pinnacle Ridge without generating additional demand on city water. So that's assuming that current demands can be met, as well as the future demands on Pinnacle Ridge we met with our reservoir in the village.
do I not read that because it says right here that the City of Port Moody is in the process of analyzing existing system capacity to address their Bill 44?
So it is important that Port Moody complete the analysis. However, this analysis should be completed in the number of months here, and by the time this proposal, if it goes forward, it would need to be reviewed through the subdivision phase, because even if something has a rezoning, they still need to meet the subdivision requirements.
Yeah,
and
but
if they couldn't meet water requirements, then they couldn't meet subdivision requirements.
I'm going to get back to the subdivision process because I'm not in a complete agreement with you in regards to the subdivision process, but I've got a few other issues that were brought up. Which committees have met to discuss the application, and is there a written report on those committees?
So you're asking about the committee input? Yeah, so that typically will come back when we do incorporate those comments and recommendations into the bylaw. Yeah.
Now, I believe one of the committees that hasn't met to discuss this is the Finance Committee.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so will that be forth? Okay,
Yep.
okay. Because the last time the landowners put this application, it was the big financial report that was the real challenge, and I'm really looking forward to kind of going through that analysis and then also for us hiring, I think it was Coriolis to do that analysis as well on the village's perspective. Just wanted to, what else was there I wanted to, the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department, about Councillor Webering's already brought up the grades. I think our, in our road service is 15%. I'm just curious about, why would they come up with 12%?
I'm 2 points for the first comment of Mayor McEwen regarding the referral to the committees. It has not been referred to the Finance Committee. It wasn't part of the original recommendation for the referrals.
Okay.
However, I can confirm that the applicant has or is going to produce a financial analysis report, which will come back with the recommendations to council as part
And
of
we
the
would
next-
hire somebody to go through it and that, but it
Yeah.
should still go through, I guess maybe we forgot to mention at the time.
I mean, it would require a referral from council to go to Finance Committee because it's not in the recommendation, previous recommendation.
Is that something, to speed things up, could we do that tonight or easily?
I'd refer to the corporate officer.
But could we send, not, council comprises finance committee anyway, but I just went to have a meeting just on the financial lens of this proposal, because again, in the previous, that's where there were some big shortfalls in regards to it.
I mean, it's up to council if you want to refer it to the Finance
Okay.
Committee as a recommendation, as a review
Okay.
process. However, I can reiterate that a report will be coming forward to council with the financial pieces for consideration for council before you move forward in the rezoning.
And we would have, like I said, like Coriolis
Yes.
would analyze that whole thing? Okay.
Yep.
The fire department, and then the full cul-de-sac road, north end of all that sort of stuff in regards to the, I guess they're hammerheads to have turnarounds and that would,
Yeah, that would be all part of the subdivision control bylaw requirement, and the applicant needs to meet the required grades within that subdivision.
so the only, and then Charlotte. So one of the comments in here is about how Wyndham isn't really the desired for secondary access. Now Charlotte has always been, it's in our OCP, and that's why we actually named North Charlotte for that to go through. Is that completely off the table, or is it something that council and the village can push back on?
Do you want to take I mean, as part, because it's a CD development zone here, council have been shown all the road connections, and as an approving officer, I'm looking at fire exit and making sure that it meets the public safety aspect. As council, as you've reviewed the application, you know, the roadways and what have you, connectivity, it's up to council to decide if it was within what you expect for the rezoning application.
But it says, like, the fire chief has put comments in here about Charlotte Crescent being the secondary access. Is that,
I mean, it's for consideration for council as you make your recommendation on the bylaw to take this into effect.
so that would be part of the third reading then?
Well, yeah, all this will form a report back
Okay.
to council to say this, but it's for consideration of council to make the readings.
The other thing that, you know, has happened fairly recently is the ladder truck. And I know that we're talking about a development that's going to be equal, if not more dense than Countryside down at the lake. And when I went down there after the fire, the fire chief commented to me the ladder truck was instrumental in preventing more buildings going down because they were so close. And I think these are even closer up there. And that piece of machinery, I believe, only has approximately 5-year lifespan left on it because of when we bought it as a retired ladder truck as a first responding vehicle from City of Vancouver. So part of this could be the requirement that we would need a new ladder truck to be able to facilitate this development.
I'd have to get back to you on
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, I think I would have a conversation with the fire chief about that because I know that, like I said, it's only got about 5 years left on it. What else did I? Also, there was a thing here, I think the Environment Committee had mentioned about, or we had previously mentioned about nothing on anything greater than 30% or greater restrictions on the thing. Is that still in play?
There will be a report back to council on the committee recommendation. Sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head. here
Okay,
on
so
this
that's
one.
forthcoming. What about the CAC benefit to the community?
Yep, that will be part of after a third reading request. We would
After or before?
So typically it would come after, once council have decided if this is something to move forward with. It'd also be part of financial sustainability.
But third reading pretty much gives approval, so it should, I know when we did Cordovados, the CAC came before that because it was part of council's decision in moving the application forward.
So it'll be part of third reading when we bring it forward for your consideration.
Okay, yeah, because we'd want to know what the benefit is in regards to the CAC. Fire quit access, Port Moody water. I guess my biggest concern as well is that regarding the, you know, there's a lot of technical things, hydrology, geology and stuff like that, and to put that all onto the subdivision phase, and then at your sole discretion as the approving officer, I'm not personally comfortable with that because I think that this is a very significant land use thing, and so I think a lot of those things I would like to see before council with reports back as to the pros and the cons from them, rather than just being put all on your shoulders. So that will be my comments moving forward regarding the subdivision. The subdivision will definitely follow, just because this is so significant, and as well, understanding the City of Port Moody's requirements as well. I think a traffic thing is going to have to be done as well. I think a traffic report, especially now with the adage of this could be at Wyndham Crescent, we have that three-way stop at Thompson. I don't know how that would all work whatsoever. So I think that, yeah, I think that's about it. But so we'll pass the receipt, and then I'll put forth a motion just that it get referred to the Finance Committee, if that's all right. Yeah.
I'd rather see the report from staff before I would want to refer to the Finance Committee, because
Okay.
we're mostly the Finance Committee anyway.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it makes
okay.
sense if,
Yeah.
I don't know what's in front of us yet.
Yeah,
So once
yeah,
I see that,
yeah.
I would be able to make that decision.
Perfect, yeah, makes sense, okay. So okay, I'll call the question. Go ahead.
Just a point of clarity, because the mayor mentioned that this is even more dense than Countryside. It doesn't appear to be. My understanding is there's 5.5 meter setback to accommodate fire safety, and that's baked into this project. Is that wrong, Josh?
Well, so density as a matter of metric, we're talking about unit per acre. Setbacks is something altogether, which doesn't dictate density. It could on a larger scale, but that's not, so the setbacks might be a little bit separate from what density provisions are. So in terms of setback between homes, I believe it's at 3 meters between homes are being proposed. I think countryside, I have to double check. It could be 3 or it could be 1.5 or 5. I don't know at the top of my head, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to 9B, Anmore Road Naming Bylaw, village-wide. Report dated November 28, 2025 from our planner is attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor Buyun. Just find my notes here. Oh, yeah. All right, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to seek council direction on 2 key matters. First, to bring forward a village-wide road naming bylaw to formally assign names to all existing roads in the public, on the public roads within the village. Second, to amend the road naming policy number 29 to include road names reserve list as a schedule to the policy. So for a bit of background, under section 39 of the community charter, council may, through a bylaw, assign a name or a number to a highway. Historically, council resolutions may have been passed to assign names without a corresponding bylaw, meaning that some existing road names have not been legally formalized. While the recent adoption of the Ludlow Lane naming bylaw addressed one such case, some uncertainty remains regarding other existing road names in the village. This lack of formalization can lead to inconsistencies in references across village mapping, documentation, signage, external mapping sources, and emergency service responders. To address this, staff are proposing drafting a village-wide road naming bylaw that formally assigns names to all existing public roads. This will create a single source for road naming within the village and provide a framework for to maintain an ongoing inventory for road names as new subdivisions are created. In addition, staff are seeking direction on including a road name reserve list as a schedule to road naming policy number 29. A list contains pre-approved names that have been used since around 2012 based on our own review and generally follow the naming conventions outlined in the road naming bylaw. These conventions focus on themes such as local pioneer family names and natural or environmental features. Should council wish to retain the current working list, staff do recommend that we update the list to remove any names that may conflict with similar surrounding names in neighboring municipalities or adjacent roads, and including it as a schedule to the policy. This will allow for more routine updates as new roads are created. Future road names will typically be selected from the pre-approved list. However, developers may still propose names as part of subdivision applications, which would need to align with the policy and conventions, align with the policy's conventions, and receive staff review and council approval. The proposed village-wide road naming bylaw will include a map labeling all existing roads in the village. Any newly approved names would be added to the bylaw through routine amendments, ensuring the map schedule remains current as development occurs. So the recommendation on the table is that council direct staff to prepare a village-wide road naming bylaw for council's consideration in accordance with the recommendations of the report dated November 28, 2025 by the village planner, and that council direct staff to amend road naming policy number 29 to include an updated road naming reserve list as a schedule to the policy. Thanks.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved. Second. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. I'll open up for questions. Comments? Nothing? No? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to 9C, Delegation of Minor Development Variance Permits, Amendment Bylaws, number 728-2025, 729-2025. Mr. Joseph, back to you.
Thanks again, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report is to present to council, or for council to consider, amendments to 2 bylaws, the Anmore Officer Designation and Delegation of Authority Bylaw and Anmore Development Procedures Bylaw. These amendments will allow for the delegation of minor development variance permits, or minor DVPs, also known, to the Chief Administrative Officer. So at the October 1st, 2024 regular council meeting, council directed staff to draft bylaws to delegate authority for both development permits and minor DVPs to the CEO. The delegation of development permits was implemented following the adoption of an amendment bylaw at the November 19th, 2024 council meeting. Staff are now proposing a bylaw number 729/2025 to delegate the authority for minor DVPs to the CEO, as well as bylaw number 728/2025 to outline the procedures for accepting and processing minor DVP applications. So the overall intent of these provisions is to streamline minor approvals, reduce processing times, and free up council and staff capacity while maintaining procedural fairness and transparency. Under Section 498.1 of the Local Government Act, council may delegate the power to issue minor DVPs to an officer, provided the bylaw defines what constitutes a minor DVP and establishes guidelines that the delegate must consider when issuing the permit. In general, minor DVP is a variance that results in limited impacts on adjacent properties, the environment, or the overall intent of the village zoning and development regulations. The village zoning bylaw hosts all the applicable regulations that may be varied as part of the minor DVP. These include regulations for the building siting, size, and dimensions of off-street parking, as well as signage and screening or landscaping requirements. The proposed definition or criteria for determining a minor DVP might differ by each regulation to account for different perceived impacts for each regulation. So for example, a 50% reduction in the off-street parking requirement may be less impactful than a 50% increase in the building height. Specifically, staff are proposing the following criteria to be defined as a minor DVP for all buildings and structures to be included as a delegation in the bylaw. Regarding yard setbacks, we're proposing the greater of up to 25% of the minimum setbacks, or 0.3 meters. So 0.3 meters is in there to kind of reference the limiting distance outlined in the BC Building Code, where anything closer than 0.3 meters would require increased fire protection measures. Also, height up to 10% of the maximum permitted height, site coverage up to 10% of the maximum site coverage, and up to 50% of off-street parking requirements. So guidelines for the delegate to consider include ensuring that the proposed variance does not conflict with the goals, policies, objectives of the official community plan, does not impose undue impacts to neighboring properties, does not adversely impact the natural environment, does not create safety risks or hazards, and does not impose costs onto the municipality. Additional guidelines apply to specific types of variances. For example, height variances should not result in a significant overshadowing of neighboring properties, and yard setback variance should not cause snow dumping onto adjacent properties. A review of other municipalities show that proposed criteria and guidelines are consistent with practices in other communities, including Coquitlam, North Vancouver, Port Coquitlam, West Vancouver, and Maple Ridge. So any decisions by the delegate in regards to the minor DVPs cannot be appealed. However, if an application is refused, the applicant may appeal that decision to council alone. Any variance outside the defined criteria for a minor DVP would continue to be referred to council for consideration. The delegation of minor DVPs can reduce processing time significantly. So regular DVPs take up anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks due to notice requirements and council scheduling. With a delegation processing time, it could be reduced for up to 4 weeks. Notice is not required for minor DVPs, but if council chooses to notify adjacent properties, processing times may still be reduced by up to 2 weeks, with notice limited to adjacent properties rather than the current 50-meter radius. So should council proceed with a recommendation, the proposed bylaw will return for adoption at the next council meeting. So the recommendation before council is that council give first, second, and third reading to the officer designation and delegation of authority bylaw, amendment bylaw number 729/2025, and the development procedures bylaw, amendment bylaw number 728/2025, to delegate authority to the chief administrative officer to issue minor DVPs in accordance with the established criteria and guidelines set out in the bylaws. Thanks.
Good. Can I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Open up for discussion. Councillor Weber.
Based on the table on page 39, obviously this is sort of standard practice in other communities.
Yeah, that's correct, and it varies based on the community. As you can see, some of the tables show that all variances are kind of delegated to the CEO or the director of planning and development.
Right.
We're taking an approach that we see most variances are to do with setbacks, and we don't see a lot of height or structural height setbacks, so it's more conservative on our part.
Okay. I mean, it's always easy to go black and white, just follow the bylaws, but I always wonder when we look at these sort of things if we're being consistent, and I wonder if maybe by having staff take care of this, there would be more consistency and fairness, because I understand we do need to have a certain amount of flexibility. So I'm okay with it. Thanks.
Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I'm of a different opinion than Councillor Weverink. When I read through your A, B, C, D, and E on what would be allowable, page 38 and 39, the proposed variance must not conflict with the goals, et cetera, et cetera. In RS1, I don't know of any place that would not be yes to all of those. So fundamentally, if people ask, they should just be allowed to build their house 10% higher. So why not just change the zoning bylaw and be done with it? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, at least in our municipality. Now, for Vancouver and places where they have, 100, 150-year-old homes, different neighborhoods, dense, things that are a few feet away from each other, okay, I understand. But for here, it doesn't make any sense. I've been on council 4 years, three years. I think we've had 2 DVPs. One was for an incorrect pool house, I believe, and the other one was somebody's shed or patio had to be rebuilt deck coming. Okay, that one I could see potentially going to staff and being delegated, but the other one, no. And I'm back to this, okay, if you can just change your site coverage and you follow all the criteria, which everybody would, why not just change the bylaw? Like, I don't see the need. I understand the benefit to some degree, like it reduces staff time potentially, but on 2 incidences in 3 years, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm struggling with, we do a lot of time on bylaws, like zoning bylaws, height, lot coverage, square footage, et cetera, and then we're gonna say right on top of it, you can have a 10% variance on that. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep. Do you mind if I answer?
Sure.
Yeah. So like DVPs in general, it's not something if a property owner desires it that you get it. Of course, these are circumstantial, and these are based on previous events in terms of development where maybe it related to a unconstitutional kind of lot that now provides a little bit of challenges for development moving forward. So it could be historical in nature. It could be kind of like a site contextual in nature in terms of like what we've seen with the bedrock example with the retaining wall. Well, if they go 1 centimeter over the bylaw, they require a variance. For certain things, for insight kind of things like that, where it is technical in nature, will require the information from the professionals who tell us that this is just a necessity. Stuff like that. That's what we're talking about. Things that should mostly follow the bylaw, but for some technical reasons or historical reasons, they don't.
Okay, so that to me is what's missing in here. There's no criteria on why it would be considered. Like I don't see that. You just listed a bunch: historical, rock wall, development site, steep slope, something along those lines. That's not in here. Like on why it would be considered. When I read this, every lot should be considered, and there's no rationale around that. And I think that's what's missing.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I'll just one more response is that we do treat DVPs, and DVPs in general are treated as circumstantial and have to have a pretty decent rationale as to why you're asking for it. It's not just because you want it. So typically those certain examples I provided are just very limited examples that could happen and arise. So we can't account for everything, which is the reason why DVP processes are allowed for, just to account for those, unknown unknowns. So it's hard to account for it, but just to know that you have Board of Variance for hardship, and then DVP has to have a pretty decent rationale as to why we would accept it is a long host of reasons. So.
Okay, but is that written down anywhere?
Not exactly.
How I would answer that is in the nature of a DVP. That just in essence, a DVP would allow you to do an amendment to a bylaw or a minor one, right? And so this is still in that nature of like, this is still a form of a DVP, but it has to be minor in nature. It has to be a hardship really shown within it. So there's no way staff would ever review something and say it was a brand new application and said, oh, I just want to build this house higher. No, like that's not a DVP. That's not a form of hardship that, someone ever came to us in form of asking, I'd like to go to council and say, I'd like to build my house higher. It would come with a recommendation from staff to say you shouldn't consider this because there's no valid reason for it. So when we're reviewing these things, it has to have a valid justified reason, not just because, oh, well, I want it, nature to it. So that's just the nature of the DVP.
Okay, it's again, fair enough, but it's not stated. And I guess somewhere it needs to be stated that's the nature in the rationale for. Like somewhere even in here, initial development, things will not be allowed. Like that's
Some sort of
part I'm missing.
hardship, like a hardship.
I suppose from a staff perspective, that's inherent within the DVP, and this is a minor DVP variation, right? So I hear what council is saying. We should have written that more explicitly. That's our fault. We should have perhaps been a little bit more direct in those manners. But for staff, for the professionals inside of the DVP, we'd always review it in terms of where's the hardship? Is this really warranted? Explain to me why we should even consider this.
Any other? Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I see both sides of things, but I see it a little differently. If we were to, there's some logic to what Councillor Richardson was saying, but if we do just default to 10% bigger or whatever that is, that just becomes a new benchmark, and we're going to get applications for variances on that. And I don't see the point in that. I do like having a percentage, and as you say, it's inherent in an application for variance that it has to be with cause. But I can see a situation, for example, if someone's asking for a variance on height, and that extra 10% would be obstructive to a view of an existing home, for example, I'd be reluctant to grant that sort of thing. So I think having that plus or minus percentage is not a bad thing, as long as it's judicial in terms of how we execute granting that. So I'm on side with it.
I'm just wondering if maybe the percentage needs, because of the size thing, maybe the percentage needs to be reduced. You were comparing it to other municipalities where plus or minus 25%. Maybe that needs to be dropped down because we're talking such significant distances in some of these things out here in Anmore with houses being of such a large size. Maybe it should be 5%.
Yeah, I mean, the percentage was just to kind of deal with kind of the larger lot size nature as well, and for in terms of asking for DVP, I think DVP in nature would also be larger to that extent, but the 25% is something I've seen kind of along other municipalities. It could be smaller. This is kind of just giving us up to 25%. It's not necessarily going to be 25%, but yeah, at council's direction, if they see fit, you can reduce it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask council, what recommendation would you like to put forth? The recommended one, or would you like to refer the bylaw back to staff for alternate amendments and bringing a revised bylaw back to council for consideration at a future meeting?
The recommended one for me.
Recommendation has been moved. Has it been seconded? Seconded? Okay. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Now we're going to move on to new business, 11A, the OCP update, provincial housing legislation, regional context statement, Metro 2050, engagement plan, referral process. Report November 28th from our planning consultant. Mr. Joseph, I know this wasn't your report, but if you can give an overview and then hold off on the recommendations, okay?
Yeah, but it was minimized, so I'm just trying to figure out.
Okay, go back into Teams. And go to, oh, sorry, you're doing it in,
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'll be presenting the working draft of the official committee plan updates, which relate to the recent provincial housing legislation and updated draft regional context statement to align with Metro 2050, as well as associated procedural steps. So we'll go over the purpose of the report, background, go over the proposed OCP amendments, Section 475 referrals, and engagement framework. The purpose of the report is to present a working draft of the OCP updates related to provincial housing legislation changes. Second, to present an updated draft regional context statement required under Metro 50. And third, to seek council's endorsement of public engagement framework. And fourth, to seek council's direction on referrals for the draft OCP update. All right, so in late 2023, the province introduced several major housing-related bills that fundamentally changed how municipalities plan for and approve residential development. Their overall intent is to increase the housing supply and affordability and to shift municipalities towards a more proactive long-range planning. Bill 44 specifically requires municipalities to plan for more ground-oriented housing options, such as suites, coach houses, duplexes, and townhomes, and other small-scale multi-unit forms. It also requires updated standardized housing needs reports every 5 years, providing an understanding of communities' 5 and 20-year housing needs. Anmore has completed the small-scale multi-unit housing zoning requirements, primarily requiring that secondary suites be permitted in all residential zones. An interim housing needs report has also been completed in 2024. There are two outstanding requirements. That's the housekeeping OCP amendments to address and reflect the findings of the housing needs report, as well as a zoning bylaw review. The province requires municipalities to complete their first OCP update based on the interim housing needs report by December 31st, 2025 to reflect how the 5 and 20-year housing targets are being met. Anmore, much in line with many municipalities, will not meet this timeline, but intends to complete the update and forward the OCP to Metro Vancouver in spring 2026 with anticipated completion in the summer. Municipalities must also align their zoning bylaws with their OCP to pre-zone for anticipated housing needs. Our preliminary reviews show that Anmore's current zoning can already accommodate the growth identified in the housing needs report. Therefore, no major zoning amendments are anticipated. In addition to Bill 44 requirements, the Local Government Act requires jurisdictions to update their regional context statement within 2 years of regional growth strategy being adopted. Metro 2050 was adopted in February 2023, making an updated regional context statement mandatory. This update is being completed in conjunction with the proposed OCP amendments. I'm just going to take 1 second because I'm seeing that this is actually the wrong presentation. Okay. So on October 7th, 2025, Council endorsed a 9-step process for updating the OCP, which includes drafting amendments, referrals, engagement, revisions, statutory bylaw readings, and ultimately Metro Board approval for the regional context statement. We are currently in step 4 with the presenting of the draft OCP amendments. A number of draft text policy and mapping updates have been incorporated throughout the OCP as outlined in attachments 2, 3, and 4 to the report. These include new development permit guidelines, updates related to the provincial housing legislation, clarity on land use policies, and the revised regional context statement. The intent is to maintain the Anmore's existing land use vision while updating the document to reflect new provincial requirements. So these amendments may be further reviewed and renewed as part of a future complete OCP update process. So the proposed amendments are draft changes and a work in progress. An amendment bylaw will be prepared and presented following referrals and engagement with the community. Chapter 1 to 3 include housekeepings such as updated references to the provincial housing legislation and the housing needs report, the adoption of Metro 2050, current population estimates, updated census data, and improved mapping, as well as references to the Local Government Act and clarifications regarding IOCO lands ownership, and special study area requirements. Chapter 4 contains the most substantial changes. These include new language describing the overall land use strategy, updated land use designation descriptions, the addition of small-scale multi-unit housing definitions, inclusion of housing needs report table, updated policies clarifying density, hillside development, infill housing, comprehensive development zones, and development permit requirements for small-scale multi-unit housing forms such as coach houses, duplexes, and townhomes. So some of the policies include RLU 2, clarification of maximum density for subdivisions. Number 6, clarification regarding the use of hillside comprehensive development zones, maximum density outlined in RLU 17, as well as access requirements. Clarification on maximum density for comprehensive development referenced in the policy and outlined in RLU 17. Clarification of existing maximum density for infill development referenced in the policy RLU 16 as well. RLU 16 outlines the allowed densities in schedules B1 and B2 of the village. These are the land use designations which include residential, which also include up to 3 units per lot for single family, secondary suites, and coach houses, as well as hillside residential, so that's 4.5 units per acre, and that's on a gross density scale. So the proposed gross density for 4.5 units per acre outlined in the policy has been selected to closely align with the densities currently proposed to the Pinnacle Ridge rezoning, and to reflect applicable OCP policies that support this form of development. RLU 18, so these are DP permits required for small-scale multi-unit housing. That includes semi-detached, duplexes, and townhome multifamily. Policy RLU 19 is a consideration of denser forms that is consistent with the financial sustainability plan. And RLU 20 basically requires the continued monitoring of housing needs targets and assessments of policies moving forward. The special study area description has also been updated to correct ownership and remove outdated content in regards to Port Moody, as well as adding health and social impact assessment requirements to align with Metro Vancouver's 2050 strategies. In Chapter 8, references now reflect the housing needs assessment, as well as permitted uses under the current zoning bylaw. A new regional context statement has been fully prepared to align with the Metro 2050 and follows the July 2025 Metro implementation guidelines. It would replace the previous 2014 context statement in its entirety. The amendments intend to outline how the current OCP and proposed amendments meet the strategies of Metro 2050. While many of the policies have not changed in the OCP since the 2014 OCP creation, a future complete OCP update would include new policies to further align with Metro 2050 strategies. So in regards to the development permit area guidelines, with inclusion of multiple units on a single family lot, such as suites plus coach houses, the inclusion of development permit guidelines would influence the form and character of development to ensure it reflects the surrounding semi-rural character of the village. Additionally, guidelines were developed for multifamily forms such as duplexes, townhomes, as well as guidelines for development on steep slopes. 4 development permit areas are being proposed. Those are DP1 for small-scale multi-unit housing, such as coach houses, form and character. DP2 for hillside residential, townhomes, duplexes. DP3, watercourse protection. This is unchanged. We just updated the language to reflect new legislation. And DP4 for steep slopes relating to protection from hazardous conditions. Maps and guidelines for each area are included in attachment 4 to report. So I'll just briefly go over these. So small-scale multi-unit housing is basically would require coach houses to get a development permit to reflect neighborhood character with high-quality West Coast architectural design on all sides of the house. They require accessibility, so adaptable housing kind of requirements to be implemented in terms of BC building code. They're required to be well-sited buildings and consideration to landscaping and lighting, as well as access and parking. For hillside residential, small-scale multi-unit housing, this is to capture a development permit for semi-detached, duplex, and townhomes. This would also kind of require a West Coast influence form and character that fits Anmore semi-rural character. Step building to design with topography, protect trees, limit grading and impervious surfaces. Consideration for articulated facades, varied roof lines, prominent screened private entrances, and ensured daylight, ventilation, etc. Also, the requirement for native and drought-tolerant planting, screening, and on-site stormwater infiltration. Steep slope development permit areas, so that would be just extra studies required for geotechnical considerations for any properties developed on slopes 20% or more. This would also kind of consider environmental, grading, vegetation, stormwater, and erosion sediment plans, address the slope stability, hazard risks, mitigations, slope setbacks, excavations, fill methods, drainage retaining works, vegetation, offsite risk, and include construction and monitoring plans. So the intent of the DPP is to ensure that we maximize the vegetation protection, so requiring no clear cutting before the village approval. Slope and riparian requirements cannot reduce slope stability, as well as riparian rules still apply during watercourses. Under Section 475, Council must provide one or more opportunities for early and ongoing consultation with people and organizations that may be affected by OCP amendments. Staff have prepared a recommended referral list and process for Council's approval. Luce & Key Consulting has prepared a draft engagement framework. Its objectives are to share the OCP updates, explain why the updates are required, answer questions and concerns, and gather feedback from those potentially affected. The engagement tools include a dedicated web page, notification to Village's email list, an in-person open house, comment cards, community information signs, postcards during the bylaw process, committee workshops, and the Section 475 referral process. So this approach will ensure that the community and affected agencies have a meaningful opportunity to participate. So I'll hold off on the recommendation. Yeah.
I'll open it up for council comments and questions. Councillor Webber.
For the purposes of this update, could you describe a development permit area?
Yeah, so the Local Government Act kind of describes circumstances where a municipality has the authority to require development permits. So those include the protection of environment or mitigate hazards, as well as have some sort of control in form and character. So these will address some of those. So we already have a watercourse protection development permit area, which sets essentially buffers along the watercourses, and in that buffer zone, any lots that are going to develop within those buffers have to basically get a development permit. And then there's a set of controls or guidelines that accompany every development permit, which the applicant must follow and consider in their application form. And so it's just an extra kind of protection that the village can enforce and to ensure that development is up to village standards, as well as we
So there's no change really than to what we already have as far
for
as
the watercourse one, yes, but we don't have a development permit for steep slopes, so this would just help us with that.
Right,
As
I
well as
remember
form
that.
and character, we haven't had development permits either. So we have 3 new development permit areas being proposed, and so that would just kind of capture that.
Okay, perfect. Other question. With the housing needs assessment, Bill 44, we're expected to produce this many housing units by this amount of time. How do we don't build housing. I mean, no municipality does. All we can do is accommodate that level of development. How do you force that? How does the province measure that? Oh, Anmore, you didn't meet your requirements. If developers don't develop or people don't subdivide, how does it happen? If the economy dies and building just sort of dies, that could happen. I mean, we're not the only ones that face this. These are all the questions that I hear in the chatter talking to other municipalities and councillors, and plus a whole bunch of other things regarding infrastructure. So I'm just wondering if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think this exercise we're doing here is kind of the primary way to kind of control that. So there is some merit to upzoning to allow for development to occur, naturally as the market conditions kind of, apply. But of course, you can't control the market. I've seen with other municipalities that there is a sort of mandated housing that is, kind of enforced onto the municipality. So this is not the case for Anmore, of course, but that's another alternative, but yeah, I understand, yeah.
Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so I'm conscious of the fact, like on page 50, you say changes in this report should not be considered final at this time, but rather a work in progress. But as I go through it, I have some questions and suggestions. On page 85 in policy RLU-2, you specifically changed the word shall to may. And it references RLU 6, and in that it says strongly encouraged. So I don't understand why it's may and not strongly encouraged, but that's, just something that goes along. And then the thing that caused me the most trouble, because this is the old OCP as well, which is we have parcels per acre and units per lot and all these other things. And you just mentioned gross density for the 4.5. Specifically, what is gross density?
Yeah, so gross density specifically is the subject site's area minus any sort of infrastructure requirements. So it's road beds, for instance.
Okay.
So it's pre-development. That's the
Okay,
ratio.
so
Yeah.
like for the benefit of the audience, like in RS1, you give your 5%, you give your road, and then you divide everything else into 1 acre lots, right? In CD zones, you take your original acreage and you multiply by 1.8, and you get that many potential parcels. After, that number doesn't change even after you give up your 30% for park and for your roads. Even with that said, with roads and park, it's only like 50% maybe of like on the hillside, for example, roughly. 30% park, 20% road, something. So I know that they were talking about originally 1/6 acre lots with houses which would have a suite. So that's 12 units per acre. And even if you divide the 50%, that's 6. So that's more than the 4 is 1/5 acre lots, which will also have a suite and a house and a suite. So that's 10 per acre, right? Even if you give away 50%, that's 5. So the 4.5 doesn't seem to fit the numbers. Like if
Yeah,
I'm doing the math, but
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I understand. Just to answer, so regardless of the lot size, there's the amount of lots being proposed, as well as what each lot can accommodate in terms of units. So in terms of Pinnacle Ridge, I think it's 4.4 units per acre, including secondary suites, including each townhome unit, including each duplex unit. And so that's the whole array, and that's on a gross density basis. So it is 4.4 units per acre.
okay, so in order for that to be true, the single-family houses are actually more dense than the rest of the development, fundamentally. Because if they're at 5 units per acre, right, then the rest has to be quite a bit low dense. Okay, fair enough. And then my last comment, because it came up in the Icona thing as well, we have this nice map of parks, and none of these things are actually parks except for the ones from Bellaterra in land titles. So either we change it to green space or something, because when we tell people it's a park, it has a specific designation and responsibilities and everything else, and none of these things are parks. So either we change them to parks officially, or we change them to green space, but I think we should clarify that for the benefit, especially in our OCP. That's just my last comment on that.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up with a few things, Josh. So with us falling within a rural designation, the only OCP amendments that we have to make for Bill 44 are 2 things: to incorporate suites or / coach houses in our OCP. Just suites, okay, just suites. And then the second part is our housing needs report, which you just stated, is already being met by our current OCP. So those are the only things that we need to do to satisfy the provincial government, right?
Yeah, correct. And updates to the zoning bylaw, which we don't anticipate any sort of major updates.
So this is what I have a problem with, because I picked this up, I read this on Saturday, and I had to put it down and reread it again, because this is way more than a housekeeping amendments to facilitate Bill 44, in my view. We're adding new density calculations. We're changing the methodology for lots per acre to units per acre, as Councillor Richardson just said. We're introducing new housing forms such as townhomes, which, again, I was there when the OCP was written, and we took out duplexes because people didn't want them. We're now introducing new definitions under policy RLU 17, where it says the first paragraph is 3 dwelling units per lot. Now the second paragraph says 4.5 dwellings per units per acre. It's confusing for most people because when you look at the map, which is attachment 4, half the village is on this steep slope. So I guess it's really, this is much bigger and a much different change. Like if you have Crystal Creek, by this, what you're proposing here, they could get 4.5 residential dwelling units per acre. So this is a pretty significant change, and I don't think people are really rationalizing it, how big of a change this could be to incorporate this into the OCP. And I'd like to, I just don't think it's appropriate that if we're going to do this significant of a change, we should do a complete OCP update and with the village OCP. This is significant. This is very, very significant. And what's interesting is it seems like some of this has been put in here, like where I looked at all the red lines in that, was to facilitate a hillside development. And so, a lot of the language is here. So I just, I'm just going to throw out a resolution that council directs staff to develop an RFP for the comprehensive update of the entire village OCP to be initiated concurrently with the housekeeping amendments, which are very minimal, to facilitate the provincial government. So if nobody seconds it, that's fine. I'm fine, but I think this warrants a complete OCP revamp with what is being proposed here. Okay, nobody's going to second it. Okay, so we'll put the other. Okay.
In order to have the discussion, I will second that.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. So the motion would be that council directs staff to develop an RFP for the comprehensive update of the village OCP and to be initiated concurrently with the housekeeping amendments required under Bill 44 and the deadline by the end of the month, or the end of the year.
Okay, we have to vote on that now, right? I've
Seconded it.
seconded it.
So it's open for discussion.
Okay, so are we correct, Essen? Okay. The complete OCP change is a 2-year process. It's not going to happen anywhere close. We need something to satisfy the provincial government, which is supposed to be December 31st. If you tie the two together, it's not happening for 2 years.
It said concurrently, so they were separate.
Okay, but I don't know how you do one with the other concurrently. So it doesn't rationalize to me that it's possible. And that's the discussion I would like to have. Is it possible at all? And my gut says it's not. So if anybody else wants to make a comment, that'd be fine.
Councillor Weber.
I can see possibly the rationale for minimizing what we're doing to satisfy the requirements is that the time is of the essence. As far as a whole OCP review, I agree with Councillor Richardson. It's a big process that we hadn't really anticipated for the new year. And I've always said it, and I've said it publicly, I think that should be the next council that does that. I think we've been sent a clear message that people want their input, and I don't think it should be this council. I think it should be the next elected council. So those are my comments.
Councillor Carr.
I'll just echo what Councillor Wevering said. I think if it's going to be a 2-year process, it'll be a 3-year process by the time you get a new council sitting up here and get past everything. I am not in support of it. I think it should be left for the next term.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. It should be decoupled as it is. We should go through this process, beat our timelines, and then a full review is in order, but not coupled to this. I'm with Councillor Richardson. It doesn't even feel possible. I think that's the right way to state it. It would be, I think we'd be at odds with ourselves. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm happy with this process.
Okay, I'll just add some last comments. My worry is the change that that could invoke in this community is substantial. And I don't think people really realize the change that has happened. And I can tell you even from, and I respect council's decision in regards to the hillside match in the OCP, but the proponent came in with an OCP adjustment, thinking that it needed to be changed from the OCP. We've had 2 other proposals come forward since the OCP is done. We had Bellaterra, and we also had Cordovados, both adhering to the 1.8 units per acre. So I'm just simply saying, I'm totally fine with getting voted down, but I think that the community needs to realize the implications of these very, very significant changes we'll have within our village. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, it was moved and seconded, the doing a OCP concurrently with that. So do you want me to repeat it again? Yeah, it's my motion. Okay, so all those in favor? And I'd like my vote recorded, please, Essen, and those opposed. Okay. Now, do you have another motion you'd like to put forward, Mr. Joseph? Go ahead. Yep.
So the motion is that in relation to Village of Anmore Official Committee Plan Bylaw, amendments included the report dated November 28, 2025, associated with the provincial housing legislation changes, as well as updates submitted, including the municipalities of Village of Balcarra and the City of Port Moody, School District number 43, affected First Nations as follows: Musqueam Nation, Coquitlam First Nation, Squamish Nation, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation, TransLink, the Greater Vancouver Regional District, Metro Vancouver, Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, Fraser Health, BC Ambulance, and RCMP, and that consultation in the OCP amendment process will include initial contact to apprise persons of the nature of the proposed amendment, and the council will consider any comments received prior to proceeding to any public hearing, and that the proposed engagement framework dated November 30th, 2025, prepared by Lucid Key Consulting, be endorsed.
All those in favor? Or sorry, it's been moved, seconded. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And I will be voting against. Opposed. Okay, we'll now move on to 11B, Village of Anmore Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan. Report dated November 28th, 2025, by our Manager of Corporate Services attached. Ms. Essen.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, just pulling the report. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about our community wildfire resiliency plan this evening. This is to provide an update to Council regarding the new CWRP. In 2007, Anmore's first CWPP, at the time protection plan, was prepared to both identify risk areas and support further development of the report itself. And this report was reviewed in 2016, and then 2019, it was recognized that there were steps to take in order to become a fire smart community. So in an effort to become a fire smart community, staff actively sought for funding opportunities, and there's funding facilitated through UBCM and provided by the province. We applied and we were granted, and then the funding was approved in October 2024, and then an RFP was issued in March 2025, and then the work was recently completed in November 2025. So the plan overall, it's a good read. I will highly recommend everyone to take a look at it. Topics that usually covers the fundamentals of wildfire planning, and then it provides with some goals and recommendations. Obviously, I'm not the subject matter expert, but Robin, who carried the project through with us, is here tonight. Should Council have any comments or questions regarding the plan? Thank you, and I can read the recommendation.
Please.
Okay. That the Council received the report from the Manager of Corporate Services dated November 28, 2025 for information, and that Council directs staff to explore and apply for funding opportunities under Fire Smart Community funding and supports as appropriate.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Richardson.
It was a very interesting read. I say I have some of the same concerns that the report even brought up, which is our parks, because this thing focused mainly on parks, is only some 3% of the village. The bigger concern to me is fire smart in the general populace, and this doesn't address it so much. And one of the biggest issues that I see from Anmore perspective is the tree bylaw works against this, which is if you want to cut a tree that's close to your house, you have to go through all these leaps and bounds, and if there's 3, then there's fines and penalties. So I would amend this with and that council direct staff to review the tree bylaw with respect to fire smart. I think that's an important step for us to do. It may not be possible to align the two things together, but I think it should be attempted. I know touching the tree bylaw is just one of those things you never want to do, but maybe if that's too much, we recommend it to the environmental committee to look at potentially aligning fire smart with the tree bylaw or something. You know? Fair enough, we can do it together. But I think it's an important thing that we look at. So I could make that recommendation, or we could have some discussion first.
Would you refer to it as a friendly amendment, just to add referencing the tree bylaw?
Yes.
Okay. Now
Just,
who?
sorry, just to clarify, council, and that council directs staff to review tree management bylaw in line with the fire smart principles is
Right.
enough?
Yes.
Yeah. So who moved it initially? I think, okay. Are you fine with that amendment? Okay. 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 Councillor Weber.
So I agree with Councillor Richardson, and it is a very contentious issue, but does anything trump safety? Not really. So I would really recommend, I'd love to bring it to my Environment Committee and maybe have a joint meeting with your Public Safety Committee.
Okay.
If I can suggest that.
Ms. Howard.
Thank you through the chair. Could I suggest that staff bring the report back to council, and then at that time it would be appropriate to refer to any committees once council has the information? Thank you.
Perfect. Good. Okay, with that, so we're referral back to staff? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor right now, moved and seconded. So there's going to be a subsequent referral, our motion after that, which is just simply to refer it back to staff. So the motion on the floor, we'll vote it, hopefully we'll vote it down, and then we'll be able to move on to the new motion. So all those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, the motion on the floor is appropriate. I think it was to staff, but then the additional comment was to refer to committees, and that was what I was referencing.
Okay.
So I believe the motion, if I'm correct, Ms. Kuzakara, is to staff, correct?
That is correct. Direct staff to review and report back tree management bylaw in line with the fire smart principles is what I have. That's the amendment. So we're going to vote on the amendment first and then the main motion as amended.
Okay. So on the amendment to add the tree bylaw, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now we go back to the original one, which we'll read.
Absolutely. 1 second. Sorry, I just lost it. That council received the report from the Manager of Corporate Services dated November 28, 2025 for information, and that council directs staff to explore and apply for funding opportunities under Fire Smart community funding and supports as appropriate, and the amendment. And that council directs staff to review and report back tree management bylaw in line with the Fire Smart principles. That's the
Good.
whole motion now.
Perfect. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Let's hope not. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. So we have an amended motion. Okay, we'll now move on to 11C, Council Committee's focus areas for 2026, report dated November 28, 2025, from our Manager of Corporate Services attached. Ms. Essen.
Sorry, it's me again. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Council Committee's focus areas for 2026 for tonight. The intention is to provide information to Council regarding the focus areas that the committees expressed interest to work during their term. After council completed the committee appointments in the previous recruitment cycle, the following committees had their first meetings: Parks and Recreation Committee, CC, Public Safety and Environment Committee. During these meetings, the new membership received an orientation and had an opportunity to discuss and determine their focus areas for the 2026. CC is happily tasked with improving the draft accessibility plan, which I'm hoping it will be coming to the February meeting. I'm trying really hard because I was given direction to update it as the committee wanted. So the committee's goal is to update and bring that to the finish line, and that is the priority as far as I can understand, and Councillor Cry can correct me if I'm wrong. That's the priority for 2026. And Parks and Recreation Committee passed the resolution and identified, you can see in the page 276, you can see the following items be referred to the committee. It's a request from council. Council has the final say regarding which items to be referred to committees. I just want to make that clear. And also, Public Safety Committee provided a list, as well as the Environment Committee. I'm not going to read them all and take so much time. So the overall recommendation is that the council takes into consideration these focus areas, but with this information in mind, council may refer any item that they may deem appropriate at any time. Committees generally do not possess this decision-making authority on behalf of the village. Instead, they function in an advisory role to council, similar to any Lower Mainland committees in many other municipalities. So recommendations developed by committees are submitted to council and/or staff as outlined in their terms of reference for their review and potential approval. So while committees may present proposal or advice, the ultimate authority, again I'm repeating, to make the final decisions rests with the council and/or staff. I also want to touch on the financial implications of this report. Of course, the council committees are supported by very small and devoted village staff, and primarily by myself and the corporate administration clerk. Of course, we are doing our very, very best to support the committees as requested by council, but I have to mention that limitation as well. And also, depending on the item referred to the committees, staff from other departments also contribute to the agenda and meeting preparation. As needed, they provide their expert opinion on the items if needed. Therefore, staff time is definitely a consideration and a bit of a bottleneck for council committees. And that should be it for the report. And the recommendation we have is that the committee's focus areas for 2026 be received in the report dated November 28, 2025 from the Manager of Corporate Services regarding council committees' focus areas. And the following items be referred to the committees: Parks and Recreation, Public Safety, Environment. We left it open for council's consideration based on the list provided. And this is where I stop speaking.
Good, thank you. Could I get someone to move that? Moved and seconded. Any discussion from council? I think the key thing is the limited resources that we have from staff of being able, and we do have a list of priorities that we're working on right now. So, not seeing it. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. Mayor's report. Just a couple things. This Sunday we have the Lighting Up a Spirit Park this Sunday, starting at 4 o'clock here. Keeping our fingers that the weather will cooperate. It's last year was an amazing event. That was the first year that we actually got to use the new Village Hub, which was amazing. I also wanted to just I was asked by a couple residents regarding the Bowen Island Community Center / Municipal Hall as a comparison to what we have, and I just wanted to put things relative in comparison. They had some big issues with their community center, Municipal Hall. It went a year over being built. There were some issues with the envelope issues with the roof and the siding. It initially started off at $14.5 million as the quoted price. It actually came in over $19 million. Just to put things in perspective, it has 12,690 square foot of municipal space and 4,220 of multi-use space is 12,690. 4220 is the municipal offices for a total of about 17,000 square feet. So it's a little bit bigger than us, but well over twice what we paid into it. So, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that on and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Council reports. Councilor Weber.
Just one. Last Thursday, I attended the Zero Waste Conference in Vancouver. It's a conference put on by Metro Van. They used to do it every year. Now it's every second year, but a lot of amazing speakers. Yeah, it was kind of an amazing day. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay. Councilor Richardson.
I look forward to seeing everybody at the Light Up Spirit Park event on Sunday. And other than that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
4 p.m. it starts. Goes, I think, 4 till 7 or 4 till 8, is it? 8, 4 till 8. Okay, I'll now pass it off to the Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. A couple of notices went out to folks, but in case you did not receive, we are currently under recruitment for some of our committees. So that is open until December 12th. There's information on the village website and our email notification. And if you have any questions, you can direct those questions to Ms. Guzakara. Additionally, our community grant program is open right now until December 31st. Same places for information on the website. And Ms. Martin is your contact for that if you have any questions. We, this year, have continued with our share giving tree and have added this year. In years past, we've just collected food, and we have done clothing drive in the past, but we're trying something new this year. We're taking food donations, and in addition to that, we're taking donations of gifts. So there is, the tree is out in the front lobby. There's QR codes hanging on the tree. And if you scan the QR code, up will come a list of the most requested items for different age groups for young children up to teenagers. So please, if you do have the opportunity, either this evening or when you're here at the event on December 8th, December 7th, it would be great to fill those boxes up, and we're accepting those donations until December 12th. And as this is our last meeting of the year, I just wanted to wish our communications consultant, Therese Michelson, happy retirement, as she will be retiring at the end of this year and has provided great service to this community and council and staff for the past, I think, about 7 years now. And we will miss her, but hope she will still visit as we consider her part of our Anmore family, and just wanted to acknowledge and thank her for all of the work that she's done for the village.
Okay, information items. We have the committee's meetings minutes there. I'll now open up for public question period. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers relating to village business. If you could just
Leslie
state your
Hannigan.
name and address, please.
Leslie Hannigan, 1065 Thompson Road. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah? A little bit? No? Okay. Does that work?
That's better.
That's better?
Yeah,
Okay.
way better.
Okay. I was just wondering about the motion a couple of months ago, I think, where Councillor Reverink had revisiting, I think it's bylaw 64, or whatever the number is, about the questions about developments. And I'm wondering just the status of that, if that's still being looked at.
Ms. Elrick? I'm not sure.
Yeah, through the chair, that is on staff's work plan.
Okay, yeah.
Pardon?
It's on staff's work plan.
You're looking at it?
It's on the work plan.
Okay. Is there
Yeah.
a time frame that'll be done? Or looked at?
I don't have a time frame right now. We're just developing our agenda schedule for the new year.
Okay.
Before our council break.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, motion to adjourn? Oh.
Canada 120 Lansing Crescent. I should have brought this up at the agenda approval, but page 35, existing feel more comfortable. And that's my question. So there's an error on page 35 for existing road names. I live on Lanson Crescent, and it says Lanson Court in here.
Okay, good, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, thought you should know that. My last question is, given that there's a schedule given out for council meetings throughout the year, is it possible that when they're canceled, because I know they're canceled at times throughout the year, can council give a general reason why they're canceled?
Normally, we just don't have enough items to go on the agenda for whatever reason, so that's why we put them over and to have, because we're bringing staff in and have it all on one night.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn? Moved, seconded, last meeting of the year. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.